your afternoon to join us this afternoon. Um, it is really important to have a continued mind growth mindset, especially when it comes to our health, because our health is so important as we see with this pandemic and just different health challenges. Just being able to learn and grow is really, really important. So when we don't have health, we lose on so many areas in our life. So this is just some information that I wanted to share with you. Rusty and Rachel will be sharing this afternoon some science and a little bit of information that they have learned, and I'm still learning. So that's why I'm having Rusty and Rachel join to share a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Rachel to you. Rachel comes from New York, and she has a little boy that is 2 and a little baby girl on the way. She is an artist and also a registered nurse. And so thank you, Rachel, for sharing with us today.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. So my name is Rachel. I'm sorry, the lighting is not the best, but I'm a registered nurse. As Heather said, I have a little 2-year-old and one on the way. And I have been working with this information for over 4 years as far as being aware of it. And basically what we're talking about today in simple form is cellular health and cellular activation and genetic activation. So what that means is all of our cells are very important and they get bombarded by our environment and free radicals and all kinds of things. And there's only so much we can do by our diet, lifestyle, exercise, etc. So about 2 years ago, I was struggling with some health issues and I was introduced to this concept of genetic activation, cellular health through natural things that are already through natural herbs and scientifically proven formulas. But basically 2 years ago, I was having some health challenges. So someone introduced me to it and I tried it, and right away, not right away, because when you're dealing with cellular health, it takes a little bit of time. But after a couple of months, I began to notice issues that I've always struggled with getting better. And even though I'm a vegetarian most of the time, I exercise, I like to drink a lot of water, get fresh air, get exercise, I was still having issues. And some of the issues that were resolved or that started getting better were chronic back pain, muscle tension, um, mood swings, ability to handle stress, some of that postpartum depression. If you've ever had that, it's not fun. And I noticed more energy, better able to handle stress, mental clarity, etc., and better sleep. I've always felt like the teenager who needed tons of sleep. And when I started using these methods, my body was able to heal itself, repair itself while I was sleeping. And I needed considerably less sleep, about an hour or an hour and a half less on average. And I was feeling more refreshed in the morning. So if any of you have kids or busy lifestyles, you're like, yes, I need that extra hour in my day and I need to feel refreshed when I wake up. So I started the products 2 years ago, and I'm going to explain what they are here in a minute. Um, After experiencing those benefits, I realized that as a nurse and after seeing the science that I wanted to share this information with more people and give them an opportunity to benefit their health as well. So that's why I'm sharing with you today. And I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to break it down into 3 pathways specifically. And let me get to the screen here. Okay, everyone can see that. 3 pathways or 3 issues that we face early in life and as we get older. We have increasing oxidative stress, we have mitochondrial dysfunction, and decreasing NAD. Now, we are recording this, so you don't have to memorize everything. When I first heard this, it kind of like went over my head and I had to really think. I'm going to do the best to make it simple, but it's not something you have to memorize. So these 3 things happen as we age. And all of these things are linked to diseases, linked to inflammation, linked to chronic issues that that everyone is struggling with. So the first thing I want to talk about is oxidative stress. this car right here, I want you just to imagine the car is in the garage and it's closed. All the doors are closed and the exhaust is coming out. That exhaust is like oxidative stress in our body. It's getting it's accumulating in the garage and you're in the garage with it. And what's some things that you begin to feel? Maybe nausea, headache, trouble breathing, and eventually, obviously, you could die. But hopefully you'd be smart enough to get out of there. But my point is that oxidative stress builds up in our bodies, just like that exhaust fumes, and we can't get rid of all of it. And eventually it starts to take a toll with different symptoms in our body. So here we see what are some of the things that cause oxidative stress: diet, smoking, medicine, air, water, pollutants, environmental pollutants, etc., toxins, inadequate fruits and veggies, pesticides, exercise, even our normal cells, when they are working, they produce oxidative stress just as a byproduct. Um, Remember this number. We produce 300 sextillion free radicals every day, and free radicals are those things that then produce oxidative stress. So even if we were to eat healthy, we can never get rid of all of those. And you can see over here, all the oxidative stress builds up to these different issues: kidney disease, aging, chronic heart disease, fibrosis, inflammation. I'm not going to go over all these for the sake of time, but you can see every single cell is affected and it affects every area of our body. Another thing I forgot to mention briefly was that I had some gut issues too, and I know that recently we had a gut health talk. I just wanted to mention briefly that my gut health was much improved. And I'm going to talk more about that when I talk about the gut activation. So here is all these oxidative stress factors or things that are affected by it. And what can we do to reduce this? Well, scientists have found, and doctors, specifically the doctor that found this formula is Dr. Joe McCord, and you can look him up if you want. We also have resources at the end we can share with you. But they have found that activating or helping our cells from the inside out is much more effective than taking something like an antioxidant, like vitamin C. And we're going to go right here to this pathway. So this was a pathway, this is a pathway, the NRF2 pathway in our body. And basically, scientists have proven and shown that, and Dr. Joe McCord developed these 5 herbs mixed together in a patented formula to lower oxidative stress by activating our internal antioxidants. And these big names here, SOD, catalase, and glutathione, are all internal antioxidants. So when we activate them by this pathway, just one molecule, if we activate one molecule of this SOD, we're able to eliminate 1 million free radicals per second. So we need to activate this, and this is how our body was intended to work. But so that's pretty amazing. If we just take blueberries or another like a kai berry and we eat that as an antioxidant, that's only going to work on a 1-to-1 ratio. So in your mind, you can think of it like a little cup of water being poured on a house fire, like a Dixie cup of water, versus a fire hose, which is activation of our internal antioxidants, a fire hose getting on that fire and being more effective. Another study was done, you can see there on the screen, that showed that by reducing the oxidative stress in the life of male mice, it extended their life, which is very important. And if that's extrapolated into human years, that I think it was, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was about 7 years or average longer life. So obviously we haven't had, this has been out, this information has been out for around 15 years or a little more, and we don't have long-term studies on humans yet, but there's some very significant evidence there for mice. So reducing oxidative stress, that's the first pathway. We activate that, we go inside our cells with this formula, and that is very significant because, like we showed, oxidative stress is linked to so many different things. The second pathway I mentioned was mitochondrial dysfunction. Um, and this slide briefly just shows all the studies that were done on this NRF2 pathway. You can go to PubMed to look them up, and the patents. This is a very informative study. I'm sorry, I forgot I had this here, but this is a study done by Washington State University. NRF2 activation is the most extraordinary therapeutic and preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. So this study was very exciting and interesting, done on all the different things that NRF2 can do in our body and how it affects our cells and preventing disease. We don't claim to prevent, cure, or treat disease, but you can see the link to oxidative stress and NRF2 as I showed in the previous slide. So on to the second pathway, I wanted to talk about that. When you think about energy, when you think about mitochondria, you think about energy. This is a picture of obviously a power outlet, but if your power gets cut off, if a mouse chews your wires, or if you're not connected to your power source, your computer begins to die. And that's what happens to our cells when our mitochondria, the powerhouse of our cells, get bombarded with environmental things, with oxidative stress. And as they get older, as we age, they're not as efficient at producing energy. After we're 80 or so, the production of ATP and energy from our mitochondria, I believe, goes down to about 5%. So we're not producing that ATP, our mitochondria are dying out. So this pathway is called the NRF1 pathway, and it was developed also to target mitochondria health. Another thing I wanted to mention is that when we are born, some of our mitochondria are strong, some of them are weak genetically. So we have weak genetics and strong genetics, and that is something we can't prevent. But when we activate our mitochondria health with this pathway, our mitochondria are allowed to repair and become stronger. The weak ones that are genetically weak, just like a piano that's out of tune, we can tune those genes back into shape. So now our mitochondria are working at their optimum function. And if you understand what ATP is, we have a much higher production of ATP when we're activating our mitochondria health. There's also other benefits, obviously, brain health, heart health, circulatory and cardiovascular system. I myself noticed when I added this into my regimen, that's the thing that made the difference for my sleep. You actually need energy to be able to sleep well. Lastly, I wanted to briefly share about this pathway called the NAD pathway. What is NAD? Well, it's quite a big thing to talk about in a few minutes. You can look up NAD online to see everything that NAD does in our bodies. But this product here activates the NAD. So basically it opens the door and allows more NAD to be available in our bloodstream. So it makes it bioavailable by 12% more. What does the NAD then do for us is it goes and it activates their sirtuin proteins. So the sirtuins are something that I like to call, they're like soldiers or guardians of our DNA. So I know I kind of just said a lot in one sentence there, but I want you to think about the soldiers or the sirtuins standing around your DNA molecule. Your DNA molecule is that double helix that you might have seen, in biology or wherever, but or in maybe on advertisement or a medical pamphlet. But basically, I want to stay here a minute. Basically, those guardians allow the DNA to be protected from the environment. Imagine that I had my resume and that was my DNA. It told everything about me. And it was sitting out on the counter and my 2-year-old came over and scribbled on it. And that was my environment. You know that our DNA is 90% affected by our environment. So as we age, our sirtuins, those guardians decrease significantly. Now imagine that I laminated my resume and that was my sirtuin protection. Now my 2-year-old cannot scribble on it and it's still intact and people can still see who I am and what I represent. So as we age, our sirtuins significantly decline. I know I was recently talking with a medical professional about this, and he was super excited that we could activate sirtuins. Um, so basically, I wanted to re-explain this one more time. This product allows NAD to be available by 12%. Then that NAD activates our sirtuins up to 100% and more. And I'll explain why it's even more, but it activates the sirtuins to 100%. So they're at their optimum fighting potential, guardian potential within 24 hours. And as we age, our sirtuins, like I said, decrease significantly. It's very important to be able to protect our bodies and our DNA from those environmental assaults and from those 2-year-olds that can come and scribble on our and mess things up. So I noticed the most benefit from this was increased mental clarity, energy, and improvement in my work performance at work. Because sometimes as a nurse, you have to go really hard for a long time and just keeping my brain going while I was at work. This explains just slightly why sirtuins are so interesting, especially for people nowadays. And if you have ever heard of caloric restriction or intermittent fasting or getting stopping eating for a certain amount of time, you obviously can see that that does increase your sirtuins, but it's not healthy to continue consistently for a long time. This product here, you can still eat and you can increase your sirtuins naturally by 100%. And that's what the blue box is over here versus caloric restriction. Now we talked about 3 pathways, and I know I said a lot of information really fast, but basically those 3 pathways, if you take them each by themselves, they do exactly what I said they would do. But if you take them all together, you have quite a significant increase. And I tell people all the time, which would you rather, just to help your body by 40% with antioxidant activation, or increase it to 78%, or the same with the healthy inflammatory response? Which would you rather, to have that activated by 51% or increased in this really high bar to 848%? I think that I tried these products by themselves and together, and I know that I experienced a much better benefit from all 3 together. And over here on the right, remember how I was saying that your sirtuins are increased by 100% within 24 hours? Well, if you look here on this far column, they're actually, the NAD gene is activated when you have, basically when you have all these 3 pills or all these 3 combinations combined together, then you have an increase of activation for your NAD. So it's, instead of your NAD being available by 12%, now it's available in your body by 227%. So imagine how much more NAD is available, how much more sirtuins are available to protect your DNA. So I love all 3 of them together. And this is a slide if you're scientifically minded, you might understand some of this. I myself don't try to understand every bit of it, but the reason why I like to share this slide is that you can see here, this is done by a scientist who did not know anything about these specific product line, or about Lifanage, the company that produces these and markets them. But this scientist was showing how NAD over here on the left, NRF2 here in the middle, and the ATP, or the mitochondria cycle, are all interconnected. That's why we see all those high jumps in our DNA and our gene activation, excuse me. That's why we see all of those high jumps, because everyone knows in the medical and scientific world that these pathways are all related, interconnected, and they feed off of each other. So it's important to activate them all together. We talked about these 3 over here. These products are all cellular health related products. They all take a preventative health approach and getting to the root of the problem. I myself have tried all of these, and except for the dog one, I don't think it would taste very good. But if you look over here, we also have the NRF2 pathway for dogs. And then we have these 3 that we talked about today. They're my personal favorites. If you have gut issues, We actually have a sale right now that incorporates this probiotic, which is time release. If you compare probiotics on the market out there, on average, if it's a powder, liquid, or in yogurt, or in a capsule, and you can shake it and you can see the air in there, it's already half dead basically, and it gets killed by your stomach acid because it's not packaged correctly. So I have known other places where you can get time release, but this one is a very high quality time release probiotic. And it's very important that you're taking a time release probiotic if you're investing in probiotics, because it will give you, this one will give you 90%, 60 to 90% of the probiotics that you need in your gut. If you're specifically struggling with weight gain or muscle building, that's what these products are here. And we also have a prebiotic that deals with feeding the bacteria, which is very important. If you have specific questions about gut health, I can talk more about that. And then we have a brain energy drink that uses that first pathway, the NRF2 pathway. And we have hair and skin care that uses that same first pathway, the NRF2 pathway. If you're dealing with specific hair loss, skin issues, sunburn, eczema, things like that, sometimes you have to get to the root of the problem and not simply treat the surface. Here is a pet that was helped. You can see a significant reduce of inflammation there. Here is my friend's gut who was helped with significant reduction and now a healthy gut. No other products needed, no steroids, no typical over-the-counter medication needed, because they were getting to the root of the problem here. And here is the anti-aging system using that NRF2 pathway to reduce skin damage and wrinkles. I think I can stop that. Thank you so much for your time. And I know I kind of breezed through that stuff, but it's so interesting for me, and I'm really excited to be able to share with you all. Rusty is going to share a short story here. He's been sharing this information a lot longer than I, and he always inspires me. So thank you so much for hopping on as well, Rusty.
Thank you, Rachel. A wonderful presentation again today, and it's always good to review this stuff and think about what we have the possibility of doing. This was never ever even a possible thought in my mind going through physical therapy school, that we could actually activate our genes like this, and like Rachel's so well described. When I first saw this, actually didn't want to see it. A patient brought this to me, and I just wouldn't look at it. And I think it's because she wasn't scientific, and I didn't think anyone that wasn't scientific could know anything that I didn't know, which was an ego issue, apparently. And my daughter, on the other hand, was really interested in looking at it, and she finally twisted my arm by saying she was going to do this. So I thought I better look at it and protect her from getting involved in something scammy, something too good to be true. But once I looked at the science and just some of the stuff that Rachel was showing you today, I became very enthralled with the information that we could actually turn back the clock. When I was 18 in college and working in the summers at a hospital in the long-term care side of the hospital, I saw just cases of people that in their 60s, even late 50s, already bedridden. And it really impacted me a lot. I thought there's no way that can ever happen to me. I'm going to do everything I possibly can. I became a health nut way back then, wanting to do something that would help me not end up in their position. And so now that we have these really an understanding, a grasp on the 3 theories of aging, like Rachel is sharing, and that we can actually address those 3 issues, it's absolutely amazing. I had a pharmacist friend of mine, and he was looking at this science as well. And then he eventually became a distributor. And he was sharing with me that if you look up on the National Institute of Health website, it's like the library of medicine, so to speak, for any published peer-reviewed science. And you look up on there, like, what's the major links with disease? As Rachel was sharing, oxidative stress is way up there. Low SOD, superoxide dismutase, and low glutathione. And those 3 things are the 3 major things that if you have those issues, you have disease and you're aging prematurely. or fast. And he shared with me that what we have is we don't have a miracle pill, we have a miracle body. And all we're doing is we're taking these 3 areas of aging and we're just resetting the genes in those 3 areas. We're actually eliminating what we call age-related oxidative stress. I'm 63 years old. I only have the oxidative stress of a small child every day. That's amazing. I'm making SOD like I'm a child. I'm making glutathione like I'm a child. And those things were basically addressing the root. In fact, you may have heard this statement before, inflammation is the root of all disease. Well, oxidative stress is the root of inflammation. So that's the key there. So what I've experienced is people come up to me and saying, like, I saw someone 6 years ago and I just met them the other day on Zoom. And they said to me, Rusty, you look 10 years younger than I saw you last time. That was 6 years ago, 10 years younger than 6 years ago. So that was kind of amazing. And Rachel was showing that skincare. You know, I'm a guy, so I wasn't really excited about skincare, but I did have some major sun damage from living in Hawaii the last 24 years. And also I was born before sunscreen was invented. And I grew up on the lake in the summertime. My dad loved to water ski and raft and motorcycle. I mean, we did stuff outside all the time. And I had major sun damage. In fact, my daughter would look at my face and go, "That's gross, Dad." It was pretty sad. Anyway, after using the skincare for just 2 weeks, I called my oldest son on FaceTime, and his jaw dropped, and the first words out of his mouth were, "What happened to your face, Dad?" So they do work. The genetic activation of that skincare is the same as what we're doing inside your body, and will make you look younger on the inside. You won't notice it, but you will, and will make you look younger on the outside too. And it's been pretty awesome. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any. But thank you again, Rachel, for presenting that information, and thank you guys for listening to what she's sharing. You know,